All right, what we've got now is we've got the USP development release out. Okay, so everybody that's on a USP, you can now get 6.0.01. These are some of the new things that are in it. Read line was modified so that it now will take a -1, which allows you to force read to the end of the file. That means you don't know how long the file is, but you want to get to the end of it and start looking from there.
File or line?
You can do it. Line. Yeah, sorry.
It's up on the website.
Because some files are coming in variable lengths and it's creating all kinds of problems, so that's a nice thing. Show pkeep will now retain the position if the browse format changes. A lot of people, depending on certain things, would have a variable for the browse, and it would change depending on conditions. But they didn't want to lose where the highlight was on the record that was already there. And yet, filePro always went back to the first record that was displayed if the format changed. Now it doesn't. It stays on the record that it's supposed to. This is a function that I don't know too much about, and maybe somebody else would like to talk about it. This is it gives you the ability to lock and unlock a certain number of bytes of a file specified by the handle. This is when you're using something. Logan?
But essentially it is you can lock a file. That way, if you're having multiple people or sessions accessing it, you can lock the file so the other session knows that it's locked so that it can't be accessed until it's unlocked by the other one.
Isn't that called record lock?
Think of it this way. Think of it kind of like so. Think about it more like you're just locking any file, so just like a traditional lock file. Yeah. You can go through and you can tell it where in whatever file you want to lock a range of bytes. Oh. So you could use it for like synchronizing different filePro tables. You go through check, say, see if something's locked or not. If it is, wait till it's unlocked, and then go ahead. And
okay. The handle is not a filePro file.
Correct. The handle is just a handle opened up through the open command. Correct. So you just open the file, and then you can actually pass it to the lock functions to go through and either lock or unlock.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. When you have a file that's locked, why does it tell you which user? At the same time, tell you which user is locking the file, so we can go straight to that employee and tell them to unlock.
There is a tool that is provided that you can use that will show you which users are locking a file. Show lock.
Show lock.
You can use show lock. It does not work on Windows, no. And that also depends on what kind of environment it's running in anyways, if they're on the same server. So there's a lot of different variables.
That doesn't allow you to show the users in a quick way, does it? Because a lot of our customers just tend to use people. So if it came up and said, right now it might come up and say waiting on record number, customer file record number 1305 to be unlocked.
Yeah,
we would say, and Bobby has it locked. In a lot of my environments, I would allow somebody to get up and, hey Bobby, will you get a customer?
You can check that right now with the show lock. But it
doesn't
show you
outside clerk, right?
What'd you say?
Isn't that from outside clerk?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Correct. I want to be able to tell an average user.
We have put it in a browser before.
Right, but that gives you there are ways to script around it so that if a record's locked or something, you could break out of the locked record and just press a user key to actually pop up a browse listing that will show you who's in what file and what is locked. So you would be able to go through and check it that way. But currently there isn't a way in filePro to show you so-and-so is
That would be a
locked.
great feature though. Yeah. Because it's a fairly common thing. I'm posting, and I'm getting an entry that says OTSORD. There's another thing, by the way. If you, just as a feature request, right there it says the file name is like, it's whatever the programmer names the file, OTSORDHD. That's the order header file. If I could somehow make that message say what I wanted it to say instead of just saying the file name. Because the end user, OTSSHARD,
Friendly
name in the OTS dash, there you go, a friendly name in the map that I want to present to the user.
So it just doesn't
when
look
I'm
like
giving them a
that.
message about that file being locked. Right.
Okay.
And if you could then have an option where you say, show them the name of the person, the user ID of the person that has that record locked. That would handle hundreds of support calls a year for some organization.
For
One more
sure.
issue with the show lock, if there's
One-
3 records locked in a file and one user is running across a locked record,
Mm-hmm.
which of the 3 users do you get out of there to free up the one that's locked? Because
The show lock will only show who is currently locking the process,
Right.
nothing that's waiting on that lock process.
right, no. So if you have 3
Right.
users that are updating like a customer record, and somebody gets a lock file on that customer file,
Mhm.
well, one of those 3 is the one that's responsible, but you don't know which one of those 3 is the one that's
Right,
responsible.
when you
Because
do
you're saying
show
a
lock,
couple
it
are-
shows you 3 people, it doesn't
Yeah.
show you which of those 3
Okay.
people that has a lock on that file is the one that's locking the record.
Gotcha, because they're all in there waiting for it. Okay.
Match the record.
Well, no, 3 of them are updating, and just somebody's trying to get to one of those. You can't get to one of the 3 that are locked.
Okay.
But you don't know which one of the 3.
Maybe if you don't want to put the name of the user, you could put the record number. And then we could figure it out. Who is on record number
Yeah, it does
19152?
say the record number currently.
That might be easier.
It gives you the record
Well,
number.
gives you the
You can't
record
come
number.
to a
Right,
show
that gives
lock.
you the record.
Yeah, waiting for record so-and-so and his
Says
file
waiting
don't
for
lock.
OTS custom record number 513 to be unlocked.
But the 3 people that are locking that file doesn't give you which record they're locking, just that 3 people are locking up a record in that file at the same time.
With what you have now, I'll give you real quick a couple of tips. Others might have different ones. Number 1, any R report, put the -U on the switch or set the
Yeah.
environment variable so you're not locking things when you don't need to, entire files. Number 2, if you're doing a lookup to another file and you're modifying things, don't put a -P on the lookup line unless you absolutely have to. That way it won't lock the remote file. If you are trying to look up to a remote, to the remote record, thank you. If you're trying to write to a remote record and you need the -P, there's a new command where you can say, if the lookup is locked, trap for that and give them a more friendly answer. And the last thing is,
Is that the -W?
that, no, it's a, like, you look up Tim equals such and such a file, Tim being the handle. You know how you can say not Tim, error, I couldn't open the file. You can also say if locked Tim, sorry, somebody's accessing this particular record number right now. Do you want to try again? And it's all in the help manual, how to do the locked command. That's only for remote records in a lookup. The last one is, we all know that when you hit U to update, it locks the record. What we didn't always understand was that add key locks the record. If I do an add key I and I bring up a browse of all my available linked images, that will lock the record even though they're not updating anything.
That's right.
So the quick trick, I just told somebody this during the lunch break, declare yourself a variable called @key, ATKEY, or whatever you want to call it. @key I, set @key equal to I and end. Immediately unlocks the record. In end cell, you say, if the variable @key has an I in it, go do what you would have done with the @key in the first place. End cell does not lock the record, so now the browse that comes up isn't locking anything. So if the user wants to sit there all day deciding which choice they want to pick, they can do that. And my R report won't get stuck waiting for everybody that's sitting on those. And that eliminated probably 90% of our
Yeah.
calls. Can you kick everybody out because somebody's locking something? Now the only time it's locked is because somebody is actually updating it. And we haven't implemented this, but I've thought about it. When we hit U to update, we could write a record to a log that says, Tim at this date and time started updating this parcel. And when I hit escape, I could go delete that record. And anytime you're running a report and you want to see who's currently updating a record, you got a little mini file that contains it.
Very cool.
It would not be foolproof because if somebody hard exited out, I wouldn't get it would appear to be locked even though it's not. So I might need to purge it at the end of the day when I reset all my shares anyway.
That's livable.
But that would be a way to find them, because I don't think, the reason we don't have show lock in Windows is there's not a simple Windows command to say, here's a file, who has a handle on it right now and where, because it's coming in through shares and stuff. So, anyway.
By the way, in GUI, an illegal exit could lock a file.
Well, anytime you illegal exit, well, not once it releases. It shouldn't stay that way.
It should time out, yeah.
And the new GI is actually much
releases
better at that too.
Yeah, the new GI will release records that weren't released
Yes, the whole heartbeat thing is gone, and
Bill, will they ever work an option to disable the X corner in the Windows box? So that somebody can't click on the X next to that filePro?
I thought there was, Ernie, I thought there was something
What's that? I'm sorry.
where you can disable the X on a Windows window.
There's a utility.
There is a utility on
No,
there.
talk to Jason, our team here. He figured out how, we have, I'll show it tomorrow, we're gonna do my stuff tomorrow. We launched the batch file, and remotely, when we launch it, we set legacy mode off, or legacy mode on, and all the other things that cause the text one not to work right, and he shuts off the X. All through, I don't know how it's done, we can talk about it tomorrow, but there is a way in Windows to basically make that console application. You can do it with registry entries, but then it affects everything. Then you got a command prompt open and you can't get out of it without typing the word exit. But there are some ways to, it's a Windows thing, so it's not a filePro thing, it's a thing that we do from a Windows environment.
And the name escapes me
No
right now.
close.exe is what you told me.
Yeah.
We have a point of sale system, and you don't want them to do anything else except do the point of sale. You don't want them to X out and somehow lose an invoice. So no close.exe.
I think you can also disable X in Anzio here on Linux for next license, you disable it.
And I know we have people running GI like a kiosk system, and they don't want anybody being able to push X.
But that you can configure in GI.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's keep going here. Dedefine. Now, when you created a screen automatically on a new file, you always had the problem of it creating a mono screen on Unix. It no longer does that. It's now creating a color screen. We got some new stuff in OpenDir where you can now specify the form length, the extension length, and the full name length. So you can work with those. We did this because some of them were coming up with long file names that we just didn't handle by default. So we decided to make it a variable based on your needs.
Wait, do you have to know the length ahead of time?
You don't have to, no. And it can be longer than what the maximum would be that you know you would run into. But at least it gives you more than 32, which is I think where we are now.
Yeah, it was 32.
Right.
Oh, that next one's good. I like that one.
Cave, the lookup wizard. If you have pfqual set and you go in and you say, show me the indexes, it always showed you the indexes for the non-qualified file, even if you didn't have indexes for non-qualified files. So you never got to pick your index because you just didn't know which one it was. But now it'll show the qualified file indexes, so you're always on the same page. We added additional commands to the FPML. This is for PDFs, where you can do font offsets and font sizes, and just additional power there. We have a new in-string, which is called R-in-string. And this allows you to search backwards from reverse, from the end of your string instead of the beginning of your string. Because you might not know how long the string is. We have a new GI admin, which they're going to show you later on. It does count sessions correctly. It does update in real time. It makes user configuration and system configuration in your GUI environments much easier to manage than the old GI admin did. And we added a ton of security.
Most notably, the password is no longer stored in clear text in the user config file under the GI server folder.
It's encrypted now. We have implemented remote licensing for GI server and filePro web. What this means is that You have a lot more flexibility in how your system will run if a piece of hardware decides to go to lunch and you replace it. Before, if the hard drive crashed and you put in a new hard drive and you restored all your stuff, your license wouldn't work because the hard drive number changed. Same with a Mac card, so a NIT card. So this is giving you a lot more, but it does contact our server, our validation server, in order just to check in. And once you've checked in, you're still going to just go right along like you do.
On installation, it's checking in.
Yes, and throughout.
When, how often, when?
Well, every midnight, right?
No, it's random.
It's random. He says it's random.
What if there's no internet
You don't
access?
have internet access?
Then we have to talk about the special license, yeah. But we can still give you some flexibility so
If you're
that,
meaning that it died, it'll just go in a grace period and doesn't hinder, it'll still let you go on.
And then as soon as the network connection will come back up and you can contact the server, it will reestablish and get rid of the grace period.
all right, let's see, where was I? Right there, the lookup wizard in Cape now allows you to use long variable names for the key. We've added alias and arrays to the listing in Cape so that you can actually see, okay, because a lot of people would say, you know, geez, I've got all these variables assigned already, but I don't know if I'm using AA because I may have a dimension tied to AA and it never listed it. Now it does.
Oh, sweet.
We've added in a show progress feature. The default is off, but this allows you essentially to put up your own message. If you're doing a lot of data management, data manipulation in the background, and it's going to take a while, you can put this progress bar up on your screen, and it'll just click, 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 click away until you're done, and then it just stops when the filePro processing is back in control again. So it just
updating the progress.
the progress bar is updated, yeah.
Like you have a command.
You aren't doing it; it's done automatically.
It's not a real progress.
And it's only for report, by the way.
Oh.
Yeah.
Can that be set with the putting of the?
What was that?
Could that be set with a put ENV, or does it got to be in batch file and be configured? Is it hard
It's
code?
part of your processing. It's processing command.
I understand that, but I'm saying if I have a report that that can either be a short report or a long report, can I put ENV in on the output report? Sure.
So that you know what you want to do? Yeah, sure.
But it's not an environment variable.
But it's not an environment variable.
Command.
It is an environment
It is
variable.
an environment.
It is an environment.
It is?
Why would
See,
it
it says
matter?
defaults off.
Oh, that's right. It does. Oh, yeah. No, this was. Oh, no. This was done. Oh, this one was done for their. What was the other one?
You're talking about the graphical one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not there.
Okay. All right. Never mind. Sorry, my mistake. I got two things confused. Yeah, this is when it's set to on. Essentially, what it does is the countdown is removed, and
How often does it, if you do a show statement and it updates every record, it'll slow down your reports. If you show it every 100 or every 1,000 or whatever, how often is it updating the
yeah.
bar?
Ernie, you ran this. What did you find?
I didn't have anything very big to show, but
You didn't
like,
have anything big to test.
I think it's just taking the place of where you have the countdown now, so it's kind of just replacing it, you know, where you have your select records and it comes down.
So it would be the same.
So it's just taking it, just showing it as a
Whatever.
line drawn.
And that
Same
doesn't
point.
count every
Like,
record.
Yeah, same
No,
interval.
no. filePro doesn't count every record now either. So. We updated the color screen, the routines on NICs so that you have all 16 foreground and background colors. Well, yeah, of course, if your terminal emulator supports it, but most of them do these days. But this, yeah, this makes Windows and NIX platforms all equal now.
Yeah, if I didn't work on OS 50.
No, it wouldn't work on OS 50.
Or a link MC5.
Wasn't that just green, period?
Or amber.
We have put in a backup feature into CABE so that when you go in to modify a process, that particular processing table is automatically backed up before you make one single change to it. You can restore back to the original, or you can continue on and make changes. It will do an incremental backup as you sit in that record and continue to make changes, and say you sit in it and make changes for 2 hours. You're going to have a ton of stuff. You're going to have some backups that you can choose from so that you can go back to a certain point in time, or you can go back to the very original.
Where are those files kept?
They're in a subdirectory in the filePro file, and there's an option on the menu of CABE, which is now option 5, which allows you to list those files and select the one that you want to restore.
And you can limit the number of backups.
Yeah, you can limit the number, and you can tell it how many minutes, in between doing backups and things like that. That's what this stuff is. The count number and the minutes.
I got a question about that. Are you able to look at the contents of the incremental backup before you restore it?
You would have to do that. I don't know. That's a good question. Logan, I don't know if we can give a view on those or not. Do you think we can?
What exactly?
Can we get the ability to view one of those backups to see if that's the one I really want to restore?
Yeah, it won't actually overwrite the current process file unless you save it and you answer a question saying, yes, I want to overwrite the process.
Yeah, but they want to be able to see it to make sure it's the one they really want.
Right, yeah, they can go and just view it and cancel out if it's not the right one.
How can they view it?
It'll open up just like normal, but you just don't save it.
Yeah.
Oh, I see, okay.
And it
I never
will
tried
ask
that.
you if you want to overwrite what you say.
Oh, okay.
So-
Gotcha.
So you're asked twice.
Okay. Report maintenance, now we'll ask you if it's not report maintenance, that's menu maintenance, isn't it? If you want to remove a script that you've taken off the menu. Report will now allows one to use .outs from a path directory. So you can have a form which normally would have all variables on it because you're going to use it by multiple filePro files. But you can now use the -FO flag to tell it which .out you want to use. You can use it from any file or any location on your system as long as you put in the full path and the full file name. And it will use that as its output format, but it will use the processing from the file you called it in.
The full path can use environment variables within that, or would you? This is in the menu.
I haven't tried, I don't know.
The percent, if I want to say percent PF data, percent, and then the rest of the path.
I assume it would expand, Logan?
Yeah, it should expand.
It should expand, yep. And then we've added pop field. Now, a lot of people who use pop-ups, pop-up update, there was never an easy way if somebody put in the wrong data in a particular field to get back to that field. And pop field now is one single command that allows you to go to that field within the pop-up.
Does it take the place of the pop-up update command, or it's
No,
one
it's
after?
after. If you have a pop-up on the screen and you leave that field, you could always do something, but there's no easy way to get back to that field. Pop field will let you do it.
this makes me think of something I asked the other day. Maybe it's a wish list item. There's no when entering field, when leaving field, or F6 is on a pop-up update. So like I said, this might be a wish list item, but people can say whether they think this would be a helpful thing. To be able to have a pop-up update with processing that basically would be treated like a call, that little block of processing could have its own when entering field, when leaving field, using the field numbers of the remote file, so that I can do when leaving field, when entering field in F6s while in a pop-up update, by having pop-up update with processing, hyphen
That's
C.
definitely a wish list item, and I wish you put it on the list.
You can do processing of pop-up update if it's in the local file.
Right, if it's in the local file, you can do it.
But I want to do it from the personality of the remote file.
Right, yeah. Okay, so that's a lot of the stuff that's going to be in 6.0.01, which is the USP version. So if you're not on the USP, you won't get these until you upgrade to 6.1.